Howdy, gang. So Nick Sims asked about my implements and if I would demonstrate how I use them. No problem, Nick. So these aren't all of them. I keep a bag, a pretty large bag of things. I shop for them mostly in hardware stores, particularly smaller mom and pop hardware stores that have unusual things, plumbing supply places, places that contractors go. That's where I find the best stuff. But we'll start with something that you're all aware of, and that's a bow. Now, I have several bows, and here's a great tip for you. If you want a really good bow, like a better bow than you could probably go buy yourself, and you live in a major city, go to a specialty string instrument shop, like where orchestral, philharmonic players go to. I know there's one in London, two in Nashville. There's at least one or two in New York. See if your city has a specialty string shop for violin, cello, viola, etc., because they have bows that get turned in by professional players that are no longer perfect for a working orchestral player, but are perfectly fine for you or me to play on guitar. And they'll often give them to you. They usually donate them to charity anyway. They rarely refurbish them, but make them an offer, give them a few bucks for it or whatever. That said, this one is one that's called the Simbon, that was specially made for non-string players like guitar players or anybody else who's bowing things. It's pretty good. I like it because it's got the curve, but that said, there's something more tactile about a regular bow. If you get a really good regular bow, you'll know the difference. And I got a bow from a string shop in Stoke Newington in London. That one's amazing. But for now, that's what I'm using. And what do I use it for? So yeah, I'll bow with it. Obviously. I also use it up the top. Wherever there's more tension on the strings, it will attack better. And of course, make sure that you put your stuff on it, the rosin. Make sure you put your rosin on it before each use. Oh, another key thing for you guitar players, don't ever touch the bow. It's horsehair or, a natural hair, and the oils from your hand destroy it over time. So don't ever touch the bow. So that's number one. So another thing I use from time to time is this false bridge. So you could put it anywhere you want and then have two different octaves above and below. That usually takes some setup because you'd have to loosen your strings and put it on there. What I usually use it for is when I play acoustically, if I play Weissenborn or Dobro, that will be implemented from time to time. And if I'm playing two different instruments, like say I have electric lap steel and the Weissenborn, I will have that already set up. But that, you do need to loosen the strings to put this up. It's not instantaneous as you're playing. But I do have something for that. This is Charlie's Slide Pro Capo. And what I love about this is you can put it over the strings, twist it, and tighten it, and then and put it wherever you want. So I use that on the fly because it pops out and slides. It's got a bar that you put it over the strings, you twist it, and then tighten it with a little slide. I like that a lot. Charlie Slide Pro. They're not cheap, but they're really, really useful. Of course, there's my EBOs. I have a third one somewhere, the Small Stone, which is like a little rectangular one. It's just a copy of these. This one kind of blows, but when I'm the TC Electronic one, I'm really not a fan of. I don't understand what the purpose of this was, but if you're using the regular EBO on one string and the TC Electronic on another, and then I could have the Small Stone on a third, I could be doing a lot of different things with drones. So, gotta have some sort of string exciter, whether it's an EBO, the TC Electronic, or the Small Stone. This, my friend Henry Kaiser gave me. It's meant to have a pickup built into it, and it's part of a way more involved process. It's very cool because it's basically a curved fretboard, and what you can do with this is this. Right, so you can basically do a scale by just rolling it over the strings. It's not really super duper effective, frankly, at least on the fly. It's okay for some more prepared things, but because Henry gave it to me, I like to have it around. Steel wool, different types of steel wool, right? So there's two right there. And they're different, like this one makes a different sound against this, because they have different textures. Anything with a texture I love. Speaking of which, I have a large collection of springs. You can do so much with springs, from, rubbing them on the strings to actually hitting your instrument with them, or using them like something that I don't have right here right now is I have metal skewers, shish kebab skewers. They're in my bag. I will put shish kebab skewers sometimes in the strings in whatever configuration I feel like at the moment, and I'll hit them with the springs. Maybe not this one. This is a big, hardy one, but a smaller one. Another thing, like I was in another hardware store, and this was the casing to a cable. And I was like, oh, that might look good. That looks like it might be good to rub against the strings. I don't know. Brushes, metal brushes are really cool. I have an assortment of these. They can come in handy. The metal brushes can also be used. I got a couple of these, the smallest cymbals I could find, which are great. And another thing I do with the cymbals is use implements over it. So this is a milk whisker. The first thing a milk whisker will do is, because it's got batteries in it, will create a harmonic. right? Vibrators are also good for this. I got this, don't laugh, it was £1 at Poundland. Yes, you can get a dildo for £1 at Poundland in London. And with use of an octave pedal, that can be really, really cool. Or putting the cymbal over the pickup. And you get the harmonic from the battery as well as the vibration. And it's the same with the milk whisker. You know, in lieu of the shish kebab spears, I've got wooden shish kebab spears that I use. And sometimes I use them in conjunction with alligator clips that we all find. So I have a collection of alligator clips, right? And sometimes I'll put the alligator clips on the strings. Sometimes I'll put them on the metal or wood sticks. I also have these longer alligator clips that Henry got. He bought like 50 of them and gave me some of them when I was out there. And you can put those directly on the strings. So you can put alligator clip, alligator clip, alligator clip. It changes the pitch and the tension, but it also gives you a little bit of a ring mod-y kind of vibe. And of course, this is all used in conjunction with different effects based on how I feel. One of my other favorite little tools is a 50 pence piece. Now, why is this different than a quarter? Well, because it's octagonal. It's got sides. And why is that important? Pitch. You can affect pitch as well as making contact with the strings. So I've got two 50 pence pieces, and whenever I get change where I got 50 pence while I'm in England, I grab them. A lot of times I'm always looking for, like I have different bars. This is a silver bar made by Daddy Slide in Germany. It's German silver and it's filled in the middle. It's got a particular sound. This is a super heavy, extra long bar from George, the same guy that makes Charlie's Slide Pro, makes this. Not cheap, but definitely unique. Like if I'm looking for accuracy, I'm using, and tone, I'm using the Daddy Slide Bar. If I'm looking for weight and sustain and coverage, I use the Charlie Slide Pro. But when I play acoustically, either Dobro or Weissenborn, I use glass. It just sounds better to me. It sounds way better. I've tried the metal, doesn't really work for me. It's always glass when I play acoustically. And to that end, I sold an amp to a guy several years ago, and he's like, hey, I make slides out of bamboo. And I'm like, well, that sounds crazy. But he gave me one after I sold him the amp. And I brought it home and played with it. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But then when I started playing lap steel and moved into this house, I have a forest of bamboo outside. So when bamboo, would fall down, if they were old and dying or something, I would cut them and make it long enough so that it would fit over my 8 strings and then some, but enough that I can control it. The other good thing is there's, like in bamboo, there's a notch, right? So it's mostly oval, but there's a notch on one side, and that's just natural for your finger to go. And then the most pointed part of the bamboo is the one that makes contact with the strings. And the reason you're always looking for different types of materials is because you get different sounds. And this gives you a fairly Far Eastern kind of vibe. Because it doesn't have any sustain, so you get more of the pluck. I'm always looking for cool things like that, so I've got a couple of these that I cut down from old bamboo trees outside. And then I've got a couple of mini slides. There's this company in Israel. I can't remember what they're called. Picasso. Anyway, this was the original one, which was cool, but I always found it to be, maybe for like regular 6-string acoustic guitar, it's all right, but it wasn't really working that great for me. And then they came out with the larger version. It's just another type of bow. I'm always looking for stuff, and these happen to have a pick on the end, if that matters. Little added bonus, I never use it. Another thing, I got this from Nels Cline, and there's a couple of different types of this kind of toy. This is a Mega Mouth, and what you do is you speak into it. It's also got built-in sounds, but you hold this button on the side and speak into it. And what do you think your pickups are? They're a microphone, right? I know, it's silly, but I've got a couple of different types of these things. I've got a big foghorn one, and anything that can excite the pickups are very useful for making textural sounds. And last but not least, I have 2 wands. A guy named Paul Vaux made these about 5 or 6 years ago. They were, I'm just being honest, kind of a complete failure for what they were supposed to be. They were supposed to be a replacement, a new way of doing EBow. And they are cool in some sense, but they don't, tactily, they aren't as effective as they were purported to be. A lot of people love them. A lot of people don't love them. And I bought one and said, oh man, I can't use this until I started playing lap slide, because they excite the strings and change pitch as you move them up. There's 2 different harmonic settings. So I bought one and then I found another one used, and I keep them in the 2 different harmonic settings because they do respond and sound differently. And you'll see me using them a lot. I found virtually no use for them otherwise. You can only find these used. He's supposedly making a version 2, but he's been taking pre-orders for 6 years on that, or 5 years, and has yet to come up with it. So I just finally canceled my order, but maybe someday he might actually do it again. But if you want one of these, you're going to have to find it used. And believe me, you will find very little use for it other than playing guitar flat, because it's really hard to control when you're doing it this way. And it's just not as accurate as it could be. But it is a very, very cool tool. So kudos to Paul. It's just not what I thought it would be, and maybe some other people thought. But for what I do, it's awesome. So that's the wands. Again, you might be able to find them used from time to time. Not often, but from time to time. And one last thing, which will give you some insight into how I like to experiment. This is called the Soma Ether. It's got these two antennae on the top, and it runs off a battery. And you just plug an 1/8-inch plug into it and plug it into an amplifier. Or what I do is I plug it straight into the board. I just disconnect the guitar from the first pedal and plug it in. But then I use it. What this does, it picks up electromagnetic frequencies and energy and transfers them into white, pink noise, static, but it's kind of musical and kind of cool. If you look at one of my videos from like a month ago, you might see me doing that. I haven't used it often with my rig, but I'm going to start trying to experiment more. It worked really great on that video I did recently. I was really shocked how well. And I was just holding it over the pickups of my guitar, and the guitar wasn't plugged in, right? The guitar wasn't plugged in. And then holding it up to the light, and I've held it on the subway and trains, and it just picks up all kinds of frequency madness. So that'll just give you another idea of what I use, and I'm a sonic searcher. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a little insight. I hope that answers your question. Again, there's a lot of other toys that are still in the bag, and you'll see me use them from time to time. I'm just messing around just like anybody else and trying to figure out a path and express myself. Isn't that what this is all about? So let me know if you have any questions.